Welcome to the Ordinary Extraordinary Cemetery, where every death had a life and every life had a story. My name is Jennie Johnson, and we don't have Dianne joining us just this moment. This is actually just a quick intro to the second part of our episode that we recorded with Avrohom last week, Avrohom Krauss. He sat with us and gave us information about Landsmannschaften, which are Jewish cemeteries that were formed by different organizations, people from various areas around Europe, and they came together in other places to form these cemeteries. And he also took us on a tour of some Holocaust memorials. So this is the second part of that, which includes the Holocaust memorials located in different countries around the world, as well as some preservation work that has been done within certain Jewish cemeteries in New York City, as well as in Europe. So please enjoy this second half of our conversation with Avrohom Krauss. If you would like to see even more information, he took us on a lovely tour throughout Europe of places where his family was personally from, and he visited cemeteries and cemetery sites. Some of the cemeteries actually are no longer in existence, but visited the sites with his sons over a course of a couple of years, and he shared many photographs and stories about that. And for that part, we felt that was more of a visual presentation. So there is a bonus video of that part of our conversation with Avrohom on our YouTube channel, and you can go and check that out and see his travels throughout Europe and these places that are very near and dear to his heart, as it is where his family resided for many, many, many years before the Holocaust and World War II. So please take some time to go check out that additional bonus video with the additional content. And we thank you so much for joining us again today, and we hope you enjoy the second half of our conversation with Avrohom.
I wanted to first talk about the associations, because the free burial, like I say, I have a personal, I feel a personal connection because of my family, but associations in general is a lot of what I've researched. I've mentioned in the bio that I'm involved with Landsmannschaften. That's a German and Yiddish word that means basically these are associations of people that came from the same original area, like in Europe. You would have people that would band together. They were from the same town or from the same area. They were familiar with each other. They were many times related to each other, and and they had these associations. And one of the things that it was social. It was also they helped them financially. Um, but membership guaranteed them in most of these institutions. It guaranteed one thing, and also was impetus for people to join, and that was they assured them a burial place.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could be a member of this, then you were with their society. Then you could have a burial in their society plot. Now, obviously, when we talked about the Hebrew free burial, you talk about people who didn't have that situation, or were
Right.
either too recently, they were new, or they couldn't afford, or they were, for whatever reason, didn't want to join. They didn't have the appropriate. A lot of times, these things were also ideological. There were divides. Like so you had some communist and some socialist groups, and like if you were from a town that had that, and you were a capitalist, or if you were religious, and so sometimes they would have synagogues, and they would have a group of that type. But different. It had to fit the people,
Right.
and so that's why I took the free Hebrew burial was actually open to everyone, and didn't care whether you're from. But some of these were quite exclusive. Like if you weren't part of the group, you weren't part of the group, and so it could be looked at as being like, oh, they were. It's not a question of elitist or snobbery or something like that. They felt comfortable with their own, and so you have your own society. Like, hey, we started one, you start one. There's plenty out there. Not everyone has to be, but and actually there were a lot of them that welcomed members who, if you wanted to join, if you were good friends or whatever, and whoever wanted, if you wanted to join, then you could, if you could afford the membership, which was, at those days it was usually I think $1 a month, but I mean that that's money then for people who, some of them was $5. But it
Right.
was, we're talking about the time period is really this late 19th century, early 20th century. And then they sort of fizzled out towards the middle. And, by the 80s, 1980s, they were sort of, not so functioning. So other people had to, like I say, take care of these plots. But so here is the Baron Hirsch Cemetery, where a plot where my family um, belonged to a group. I don't know whether it's a Landsmannschaft. It was a certain rabbi had plots. I don't even know our connection. I think they just somehow got connected because they needed plots. I'm not sure even. That's a mystery in my research that I haven't been able to answer. But for our purposes here in the cemetery, this is the Baron Hirsch Cemetery. It's also on Staten Island in New York. And judging from this picture, how would you say, how would you rate this in terms of upkeep?
From this
Um,
angle, it looks like
yeah,
it's pretty well kept up.
yeah,
Yes.
the
Yeah,
front anyway.
yeah, oh yeah. But here in this section, I was able to find my grandfather. Now this is also your great grandfather, and this is eerie because when you see your same name on a
Hmm.
tombstone looking back at you, Abraham Krauss, Avrohom is the Hebrew for Abraham. um, it is something. I mean, I also felt a particular connection to him, even though, of course, I'm named in our tradition. We don't name after the living relative. So I, of course, never didn't know him, and he also passed away many years before I was born. But the Jewish in the Jewish tradition, we observe the anniversary of death. And the
Right.
observatory death goes by the Hebrew calendar. And the Hebrew date that's listed here on the tombstone is the 18th of the month of Tevet. I was born on the 18th of Tevet.
Oh wow.
Oh,
So I'm not only named after him, I was born on the same day in the Hebrew
that he
calendar.
died.
That he died, but different year. But the truth is that actually, according to the birth certificate, he died at night, and at the night the date switches. So it really would have been the 19th instead of the 18th. But that was it's close. It's close enough, and I think it was very eerie. But here his tombstone. If you look at to the left of his tombstone, you will see a fallen tombstone. If you look in the back,
You can see a couple more
you
back
can
there.
see a
Yeah.
couple of more. And then
Oh
over
my.
here,
Oh,
this is where his wife was buried. Now, in this cemetery, which wasn't uncommon for these associations, it was like first in. That was the first. They buried men in separate sections and women in separate sections.
Right.
That not all cemeteries are like that, and not all Jewish cemeteries and not all religious Jewish cemeteries are like that. But with these associations, they didn't guarantee you a place. Like you couldn't choose, like me and my wife over here. So what they did was they made rows or sections. Some do
Hmm.
row, like men, women, men, women, 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 and other cemeteries like this plot did men in the front and women in the back. If you
Hmm.
see the fence in the back, so my great grandmother is not next to his my great grandfather, her husband, but she's in the back. And I guess the fence, there are that's it's not like the other side, which is within the cemetery. This is the perimeter, and it's like roads over there. I assume that you had vandals climbing the fence
Hmm.
and you know having
okay.
their spree.
Uh,
Um, probably drunken spree. Toppling tombstones. Well, I didn't even. This is good. The first time I came to this cemetery, I came with my father, and we saw his grandfather's stone, and he knew where it was, and it was right. It's right near the front. He he knew where it was, and then he said, "Well, Grandma's in the back." Now, in the back, if at that time was a forest, you couldn't see any graves back. He said, I
Wow.
remember. He said she was buried by the fence, so you couldn't see anything. It was so overgrown. So he said, well, maybe we'll have to come back in the winter when, the brush and everything is,
Died
maybe it will
out.
be. So another time I went there, I must have, I don't know how many times I went. I went there. I had, you see the picture. This is a picture I took. This is I eventually I found it, and I had to find it because I knew it was near the fence. Well, you have to go row by outside and step, here and there, and try to avoid. Oh, that's another thing in our tradition. I don't know. We are very careful as much as we can not to step on graves.
Right.
We so you have to do some fancy footwork,
Little
especially
dance
since
through the cemetery there.
the graves are close together, and um, and here it is, uh, here it is. You know, it's toppled over. So I thought it was a long shot. I contacted the cemetery. Actually, it was by email, not right away even. I said, listen, my great grandmother's stone is in the such and such section in your cemetery. I'd like to know, is there any way we could re-erect the stone? And they said yes. They replied, and they gave me a price. I thought it would be astronomical. I think at the time it was maybe $150.
Oh, wow.
I
Oh,
said, which to me, I felt that was a bargain. I
yeah.
said, go for it. And
Oh,
here
look
it
at
is.
Oh,
it.
So that was very meaningful. I felt, I couldn't look at all the other ones around it. You sort of feel, you know, in a, you sort of feel guilty, like, how can
Right.
you put it up and then everyone else is down, but, you have to do what you can. You can't fix the entire world, but at least you could try to do, if
One
everyone would
stone
come
at
to
a
the
time.
cemetery. And
yeah.
here we are. So that's the first. So that's with vandalism and trying to care for cemeteries. And this is my great grandmother's.
Oh,
So I just felt, like I say, you connect with your loved ones in a cemetery, and I just feel that I felt a connection. I never, knew her, of course, and I just hope we have a warm embrace and that she was smiling from up in the heavens. Let's move on to preservation. This is the same. This is a picture of the Silver Lake Cemetery, which unfortunately also fell into disrepair, like many
hmm.
old cemeteries. At least the Jew. I don't know about whether the general population has as much issues. We have particular issues with cemeteries because a lot of times there's no one that's around. They're all private, and there's who's going to pick up the tab once there's no one else alive, and whoever's in charge of the plots is not there anymore. And
Right.
unfortunately, there's also we could talk about a little bit later, vandalism and these things. So this is there's a preservation. If you could see also in this picture in the left top corner, there you see people there who
Hmm.
are volunteers who are trying, and they're doing great work restoring. I believe that the Hebrew Free Burial Association, they have periodic cleanup in cemeteries and to try to restore cemeteries. I believe they said in their newsletter, I don't want to be quoted, but I think that they had 1,000 students that
Wow.
in the last year or whatever it is
Oh,
that were
nice.
that from the Jewish schools that they came there and helped out the cemetery. Now, that's another thing about cemeteries, if I may throw in. This is, that plug for cemeteries. You can't expect cemeteries to exist or be taken care of, and you can't expect people to realize the value and appreciate these what we in Judaism we call them their hallowed places, unless it's perpetuated to the next generation.
Right.
These things have to continue. And the only thing is, and one of the best ways is that if you get volunteers in cemeteries, no matter what faith or whatever, I mean, they will start to appreciate what exactly this means.
Right.
And, I think that's a very important thing, besides the good work that they do. But it's something that the message is learned, like there's no better education than actually doing. So this is a cemetery I was not at. but I just again wanted, because of this, because this is in Europe, and these sort of things you sort of expect but because there's no Jewish communities left,
Mm,
or this is the type of thing you see graveyards. But what really is painful is to see the goats or deer or whatever they are. I'm not
I was
sure on
gonna
the
say, I think
right.
those are goats.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And here that's the sad thing, when cemeteries fall into disrepair and there's no one around. So everything goes, the elements, the animals, you can't blame them, but you could blame the people around that, how do they let that happen? So, but that's the story of the desecration of graves. Here's
Ugh.
something which is very painful. And this is what,
I was gonna say, for our listeners who can't see this right now, he's showing two photos, one that says father, one that says mother of a headstone. Both have been spray painted with swastikas.
and that's not much better, but
Ugh. And another one that I don't know what that says, but I'm assuming it's a slur.
whatever it is, these things are repulsive and very, very,
Ugh.
very difficult, especially, in light of all the terrible hate that's going on.
Yes.
So on the topic of Holocaust, we can't get away from it. Um, but it's our job. We've created memorials to try to honor the dead. And we talked about Landsmannschaften, the society groups from towns. So towns that have their plots, their own cemetery plots, often will have uh, to remember their dead. They will those victims of the Holocaust from their town. They will often put up memorials. And this one I chose because it's one of them that shows actually names that are inscribed. Not all of
Mm-hmm.
them have that. And so at least they have some type of memory, some type of place where people come, and you see again, you can see the stones that are placed on these, even though um, like I think it's important to point out there are there there are people without tombstones, and there are tombstones without people.
Right.
So that's why I view a memorial. These stones are essentially the grave that they never had, but at least people could come and pay their respects, and for them over here. Here's a close up. It's written all in Hebrew.
Mm.
Um, the names of the people. And something else I wanted to mention that you don't have here. You have some of them, not all the names are here. You don't have it here, but the traditional way of, some of them do have. Yeah, the traditional way is for a person to put the personal name and the father's, at least the father, sometimes the mother's name as well. And that is the traditional way of the Jewish naming patterns. And that way you get not only the person, you get their lineage, where their family's from. So some of them have that, some of them have their last names, their surnames. Some of them just have there's a man here with his, it says why uh like her husband, it said her name, and it said her husband and children without giving the
Mm.
name. But the people that were left, some families were totally wiped out, and
Right.
the only people that could remember them are friends or acquaintances, and they may not have known all the names, so they put what they knew. I've seen that many times on these things, like someone and child, someone and their child, someone and the children.
Mm.
It's sad, but at least it's some type. They did the best they could.
Right.
And here's another society, Independent Drug and Benevolent Society. And this happens to be another cemetery, a different cemetery in Staten Island, United Hebrew. And there you see up on top, there's like it looks like a fire, like canisters, like the
Mm-hmm.
memorial candles. And then in the middle, you see those are the flames. That's the symbol of Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Center in Israel. They use that as it has 6 branches to as a reminder of the 6 million representation. It has
Right.
something here though. Again, you see stones in the
Uh-huh.
foreground, and you also have something unique. Like I say, not for the faint-hearted. This this grave contains ashes and bones of our martyrs,
Mm.
taken from the crematorium at Auschwitz.
Gives them some sort of hallowed ground to be in.
Yeah. Now we're going now to Israel. This is a little obscure, but it's in Jerusalem. Not everyone knows of it, but it's one of the Holocaust memorial places, and it's called the Chamber of the Holocaust. And here you see they made it as a virtual cemetery, virtual in the old meaning, not virtual in the computer age way, but virtual in that it's supposed to evoke the image. It's supposed to be like a cemetery. You see the way the stones, each stone here commemorates a town. It has the name of the town, where it was, and when they have the name of when the town was liquidated,
Wow.
when they came in and annihilated. Sometimes it was over 2 days, but sometimes when they knew it, they put down the dates, and they put the Hebrew dates. And those days are the days that the communities or the descendants of the community that they use that date as the what's called yard site. It's the anniversary of death, of which is kept by everyone of people of their parents, and that's it's a tradition to keep and to have certain prayers and certain types of um, the activities that are associated with the memorial ceremonies, and that's done here. And some of them get used to gather here. I mean, the generation that was after the Holocaust. And nowadays, I don't know whether they still come, but this is the way it is with the looks like tombstones. Here's the other types on the walls there. They're also each one's a town. These places
Wow.
covered with these towns and names, and it's all in Hebrew. Oh no, some there is in English as well. Now we go to another memorial. So I put these things, I've been very liberal, and I figured that you would also understand that these are in fact cemeteries. I think they still could fit could with the liberal trans
Oh yeah.
interpretation of what a cemetery is. I think it has names. It's there to pay respects to the person, and so even if they're not in the strictest sense a cemetery, I think they could qualify in the fact, like I say, it's a cemetery but without the people, and that's what the more memorials are. So here's another one, Yad Vashem. This is one of their chambers. This is a World Holocaust Remembrance Center. It's in Jerusalem, and it has this. I mean, just faces of faces, like
Hmm.
going up to it's like a heavenly spiral of these people that just like were taken up. I guess that's what it evokes. They have these people and their photos and just of martyrs, and that's one room. So that's they have that, but they also have what's called the Valley of the Destroyed Communities, and this is also names of towns that were destroyed. The Jewish communities were destroyed in all these towns, and it's divided up into different sections around Europe. Um, Here I am a few years ago, when my beard was still black, and uh, and so up on these are stones. Like this is a massive valley. It's like it gives you the feeling that you're in this surrounded by huge boulders, which I think is supposed to give you the idea of a cemetery. But the magnitude of the Holocaust is, I guess, the imagery is like this, like you're dwarfed inside these huge boulders upon which is engraved the names of, instead of all the people, but at least the towns that they're from.
Where they
If you
resided.
if you look on the top right, you'll see Panobretjeg and Rosvedov. Rosvedov is the town with the train station that I
Yeah.
showed you earlier, and that's why I'm standing. I wanted to have a picture. That's one of the towns I had. I tried to take each picture by each of the ancestral towns where my family came from, and so again, it's another way of connecting to the people and the martyrs and to the destroyed town. Like I said, this is a cemetery, but cemetery without the people. Another thing I want to end with is this is the Garden of Righteous Among the Nations. In Jerusalem, there is a whole section to memorialize those Gentiles who risked their lives to save
Mm.
Jews during the Holocaust. And here you have names of all different from different countries. They divided up, and of the righteous that people there's a procedure. People have to have the name submitted, and a committee has to go through it and have to research and see what these people did and whether there's certain criteria which I'm not
Right.
familiar with. How they decide who is considered, and you have the walls contain their names.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And like I say, here it's not surprising to see flowers because
Right.
it's Gentile. You wouldn't expect that with within the Jewish, but they have flowers, which is quite appropriate. Here, this is a survivor who's crying by the plaque there of the person who saved him. So they have plaques as well. This is perhaps the man that's most familiar, most famous for his involvement with saving 1,200 Jews in his factory. He was a factory owner, Oskar Schindler,
Mm-hmm.
and he saved people in his factory, giving them jobs and then doing whatever he had to in order to save their lives. Um, was famous Oskar Schindler's List, if you're familiar with, that was made
Yep.
and happens to be I knew people on his list. There were people that lived in my community and that were saved by him. And there were people and I know other people who were hidden by some of the righteous in houses and in their barns and their underground and in holes in the ground that they had in order to survive. And the people that I knew would send money to the people in
Yeah.
Poland and their relatives because these people, they built up their lives, some of them very successfully, others more modestly, but they felt indebted and they many of them traveled to see them or brought them over from Poland to the United States and treated them truly as family. This is where Oskar Schindler is buried in Jerusalem, in the old
Mm.
city of Jerusalem. It's a Catholic cemetery, um, and this is where he is at. This
Oh,
is the
wow.
most. This is the most. When I first saw this, it was so jarring. I can't tell you. And but for all that don't know, it's Oskar Schindler's graves. His tombstone
Mm-hmm.
is expectedly you'll find a cross on above his name, but you see it's surrounded by stones. And to me, the juxtaposition of stones, like he was treated by the ones who saved him like they went to any one of their loved ones' graves. They memorialized him by putting a stone, even though that's not in the person's own tradition. So to me, like at first I saw this picture and before reading the name, I said I was shocked. Like I didn't know what was this? How do you have a cross together with the stones? But it does show you that, like I say, they treated him as family. They they were indebted, all the generations that followed, and they honored him in the same way that that's the traditional way. And they came to his grave, and they probably still do today, his descendants. This is a tree. They have trees planted in honor of each of the righteous, um, also the righteous among the nations, that they're called, who saved Jews.
Mm.
This is what Golda Meir said, the prime minister. They rescue not only the lives of Jews, but save the hope and faith in the human spirit. And I think that's a befitting way to conclude. I do have a few extra slides in case you're interested, because I just can't stop. It's near and dear. It's such a topic. By the way, I also have to say, I'm spending a lot of time on the Holocaust, because that is first of all something I don't know whether you normally would get to hear, not also from a Jewish perspective, but interestingly, my family, and I say my family, everyone has relatives that were caught up in the Holocaust, but my family did not, like the close family, did not endure the Holocaust. They were already in the United States. They came at the turn of the 20th century.
Before it
Them and
happened.
their family, most of their, and they were those who did. That was a great wave of immigration. Those who did were saved from the Holocaust, and I don't. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be here, being able to give this talk. But um, but it's something that's a concern of all Jews, and of all, I would say, people of the world, and it's a story that has to be told.
Oh,
And
yes.
it's another angle at cemeteries. Those that are the actual cemeteries that we saw, and those that are virtual cemeteries, those are or that have places where people are remembered, uh, and they're the honorable, the forgotten, and the unknown are the places um, where we could come to meet them.
I this was amazing to see, for one, all the places you've managed to visit, all the history you've traced from your own family,
Mhm.
and then the way you've been able to connect it. So many of those places, like you said, were wiped out during World War II, unfortunately, because Hitler and his men decided that the Jews didn't need to exist anymore, and they did their best to try and wipe out everything that existed for them. But I love that you, and I'm sure others like you, have gone back and done exactly what you've been doing, and still remembered the people and the places, and making sure that the stories are not forgotten, even if physically what should be there is no longer there.
Yes, I just add, like, one of the things I really love your opening. Every death has a life, and had a life, and every life had a story.
Yep.
But also, every story has a story.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
does.
And also, every story has a life, because by perpetuating these stories, we're perpetuating the lives and the stories. It keeps on going. Like when I think, um, this goes for all lives that are lived. Like when I think back to my great grandparents, and the loss of their infants, of the babies, newborn babies, and it's not for us to question. We don't know. We don't understand. But I couldn't help thinking that, when we do these things, when we see an organization like the Hebrew Free Burial, so, like, all the good that they're doing and the cemetery work that they're doing, in a sense, that, like, you could see that these lives were not for naught. They
Right.
didn't die in vain, because people are perpetuating their name. People are researching. People are learning. This is what you have to. This is the way you have to treat people. If you go ahead and you go to a cemetery, and you go to Eastern Europe, and you preserve a cemetery, or you do a cleanup job in your local cemetery in the United States, or whatever it is, you are in a sense, saying, okay, people died, and that's very unfortunate, but you are contributing to the rest of the story. You're contributing to a meaningful, um, a memorial. You're contributing that something meaningful came from their lives. If people are touched, if people are made to be better people from it, then I think that's the greatest goal. I mean, like we said, started off that burying in Jewish tradition is the greatest of its kindnesses. I mean, if we got to be part of the kindness. We got to be,
Right.
we got to open our arms and to help people and to remember what they've done and to learn the lessons of their lives.
Oh my
Exactly.
gosh, I don't think we could have said that better if we tried. Because that was so beautiful. So very, very beautiful. And hopefully it's a message people will connect with and, you know, absorb into their beings. And when they go out, they will think of things differently or make different choices,
Yes.
especially with understanding the importance of preserving not only cemeteries, but the memories of people interred there, or even if they're not cemeteries, their memories of those people's lives.
Thank you so much, Avrohom, for joining us, for
Honor.
figuring out, working with us on the time difference here.
Oh, you're the ones that had to get up at 8 o'clock or before.
Oh, that was long before 8 o'clock, let me tell you.
I've been watching the light fade behind you as we've been talking, so I know it's getting later and later for you.
Yes.
So, but we have so much enjoyed chatting with you, and you have given us just a wealth of information to share with our listeners, and we are so grateful, and our viewers on YouTube. And again, for our listeners who are solely listening through any of the audio apps, please make sure you go check out the YouTube channel so that you can see all these wonderful photos that Avrohom has provided us with of the cemeteries that he traveled to and the memorials that he visited, as well as a lot of other photos that he included that show the people and some of the other places even before he was there.
Right.
You don't want to miss being able to see all of the fabulous stuff he has provided in his presentation to us.
We thank you for taking the time to join us today for this truly an extraordinary story. To learn more about the story we shared, please visit our website, theordinaryextraordinarycemetery.com, where you will find the resources that were used to bring this story to life. If you are watching us on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to our channel, like our episodes, because this helps put us up into the YouTube algorithm. And then also, if you are so interested, we now have an opportunity on our website, and I believe it's on our YouTube channel, if you care to buy us a coffee. On the bottom right, left-hand corner, I don't know my left, my right, but left-hand corner of our website, there's a little tiny coffee cup. So this will help cover some of the production costs that go into this, the editing costs, and everything else that's involved in bringing you these ordinary and extraordinary stories.
And in case you aren't aware, so buying a cup of coffee, you might, if you listen to other podcasts, I know there's other podcasters that use this, but the really cool thing about the coffee feature is we get the full donation. So whatever amount you are feeling generous to want to donate, coffee doesn't take a fee from that or anything. So it comes straight to the website or straight to us as a donation. And like Dianne said, that will help defray our production costs. We pay fees to host our to a host service. We have to pay for the website. We pay membership dues for all the places that we use to do our research. So that's what your donations would help to support if you feel like buying us a cup of coffee. That really does help defray the cost of putting together these episodes for you, which we love doing, by the way, and we will continue to do.
Yes.
But if you are feeling generous and would like to do that for us, yes, if you go to the website or the YouTube channel, it's in the links. If you look at our alert links on the YouTube channel. And please don't forget to visit us on our social media, where we share all kinds of cemetery photos, quotes, tidbits, and more. We are on Facebook and Instagram at Ordinary Extraordinary Cemetery, and on X at OrdExtraCem. And in addition to, if you'd like to buy us a cup of coffee, or another way to help us out is to leave us a 5-star review and a comment on either Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our website, and on YouTube. leaving comments and reviews like that in all of those places really does help our podcast to grow. And it helps others who love cemeteries, stories, and history to discover us and all of the ordinary, extraordinary stories we plan to tell here.
Until we meet again.